Imagine every Monday night, the progressive movement huddles up together and talks the week ahead, the month ahead, the road ahead, reflects on the week past. Every Monday night, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 5:30 p.m. Pacific. We're a nationwide national movement with groups and activists across the country. So thank you for joining tonight. We are going to start this call right here at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, so in about 4 minutes. So thank you for joining tonight's call. It is very important. Tonight we are going to talk about the battle over the federal budget. We're calling it Battle of the Budget, and we're going to be talking with one of the warriors in that battle, Representative Chuy García from Chicago, one of the brave and strong progressive legislators who are saying, you know what? We got behind Biden. We want to make sure Biden won the presidency, and we are going to make sure progressives are heard loud and clear in this bill. So cannot wait to hear from Representative Chuy García. I'm a longtime organizer, started in Chicago back in the late 90s, and Chuy García was a progressive champion back in the 90s. Now he's in Congress, and, you know, I'm going to say kicking ass for the working class. Cannot wait to hear from Chuy García tonight. And corporate Democrats in Congress derail this $3.5 trillion budget. We are in big trouble. We're not going to deliver on healthcare, climate change, and other progressive priorities. Imagine in this moment that we don't deliver on climate change. It is beyond a tragedy if we don't. It's going to cost us the House and the Senate in the short term, but long term, it's going to cost us a lot more. So we are fighting with everything we got in this moment to make sure we pass this progressive budget and make sure it gets done as quickly as we can. So I'm going to give a couple shout outs because we have an awesome call tonight. And also we're going to hear from Justin Bibb, who is going to be the next mayor of Cleveland if we go out and vote. Justin won a competitive primary and is on his way to the mayorship in Cleveland. So imagine in Cleveland, we're going to have progressive Justin Bibb, progressive visionary as a mayor. And then up the lake there, Lake Erie, we're going to have India Walton as our mayor up in Buffalo. So imagine Lake Erie becoming a hub of progressive mayors. Cannot wait to make that happen. So very important elections coming up this season. So who do we got joining us tonight? Let us know where you're calling in from. Seeing some good friends. Seeing Margaret Bell from Albuquerque, New Mexico. Hey, Margaret, we're going to be driving through Albuquerque on our way to Phoenix, taking on Kristen Cinema here in a couple of days. Let's hang out. I'm seeing Miguel get the area saying, yeah, he knows Chuy from the 90s in Chicago also. I'm seeing our good friend Zach in Virginia. He's ready to organize to win. Barry Walridge in Ohio. We got Berwyn, Illinois in the house with Diane. We got our good friend Susan Staggerwalt from Rashida Tlaib's district, one of our great OR national volunteers, always leading the phone bank fight. Who else? We got Lucero in South Carolina, Molly in South Carolina, great South Carolina leaders, Mary in Chicago. Then let's go out to our good friend in Salem, Oregon, Jennifer Sprague, who is taking on one of those corporate Democrats every day of the week with Kurt Schrader. So love Jennifer Sprague and all the work she's doing. I'm seeing Jesse in Clinton, Maryland. How's it going tonight? So let us know. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep let's keep it hot and heavy in the comment section. We're going to have a lot of fun tonight. We have a great call coming up. And I just want to say one last thing. If you don't get our newsletter, sign in the link below. Get the Our Revolution report every Saturday and every Monday. Gives you an update of what's going on. Gives you a preview of this Monday call and all the work being done across the country. And don't forget to become an Our Revolution donor tonight. We are, the largest progressive grassroots funded organization in the country. We live and grow and live off of small donations. That's what Bernie taught us when he started this organization 5 years ago. And that's how we live. That's how we organize so strongly together. So the end of the year, we're starting Q4 next week. So become a member if you haven't in Q4. We want to finish strong with a couple thousand new members before the end of the year. So join us, become a member, read the newsletter, help start a group, have some fun, chat in the chat room. Let's get this call going. And I'm going to kick it over to my comrades. Let's kick it over to Paco. And how's it going tonight, Paco?
Hey, Mike, it's going pretty good. And welcome to all the revolutionaries out there. I'm Paco. I do comms and campaigns work here at Our Revolution, and I'll be co-hosting tonight's call with Kara Freibaum, our digital coordinator. So go comms team. We've got an action-packed broadcast tonight here for you, and we're really excited that you're here with us tonight. This evening, we're going to hear the latest on the battle over the budget from Representative Chuy García of Illinois, who Mike already introduced to you guys. And second, we're going to get a field report from our organizers on the ground about all the different direct actions we've been taking across, the offices of corporate Dems, leadership, all kinds of folks. We're keeping them all accountable as the battles for the boldest possible budget bill and for the Freedom to Vote Act start heating up. We're also going to hear from Justin Bibb, who's organizing to win his race to be the next mayor of Cleveland in Ohio. And, we're so happy to have our folks in Ohio, our Revolution Ohio members fighting for him. Shout out to those folks. I want to remind also everybody to sign up in the link in the chat to get our newsletter, the Revolution Report. This is where we report critical inside information on how our movement is building power and using that power to hold politicians accountable, fight for progressive policies. And we also give you opportunities to plug in and take part in some direct actions and other activities happening in your neck of the woods. So this is how we all get on the same page and fight together as a unified front against the corporatists in this country. So the link is getting dropped in the chat. For those folks that are listening on the phone, join us in the Zoom room, ourrevolution.us/Zoom. You can be in a more interactive experience there. But before we get going, it's important to remember that Our Revolution is 100% funded by you, our members. Over the past 5 years, we've become America's leading grassroots funded political action organization. And together with all of you, we're working to deliver progressive policy that will change people's lives for the better. So if you're already a member, thank you so much. All the work that we're doing wouldn't be possible without you. But if you're not yet a member, now is really a good time to try and become one. Get involved. We're able to hold politicians accountable, try to push for this budget to be the best budget it can be, elect progressives like Justin Bibb and others, and transform the party because of your support. So sign up to become a member. The link is getting dropped in the chat. If you're on the phone, you can go to rrev.us/2021member. If you're joining by phone also, you can press *3 and the operator will help you out there. So if you've signed up to become a member today, just now, tell us about it in the chat. We love to hear from our new members, hear where they're from and see what we can do together to change this country for the better. So let me turn it over to Kara, who's going to be your co-host for tonight. Take it away, Kara.
Thanks, Paco. This is really a movement moment. Midterms are on the horizon. Major transformative policy wins are on the line, and our democracy's survival hangs in the balance. As progressives, we are leading the fight on two fronts. On one side, we have corporate Dems working overtime to undercut Bernie's $3.5 trillion budget bill and slash our progressive priorities. On the other side, we have right-wing Republicans using every trick in their arsenal to dismantle voting rights and gerrymander our elections. If the corporatists derail success on these two fronts, Democrats could lose their House and Senate majorities in 2022, rendering the Biden presidency hostage to a Republican Congress and opening the door for a Trump comeback in 2024.
And speaking of Trump, he came out this week to rally Republicans to mobilize against our Freedom to Vote Act, knowing it would imperil right-wing candidates like his that rely on disenfranchising as many voters as possible in order to win. But passing the Freedom to Vote legislation is critical if you want to defeat the GOP and its war on voters. So as we know, the Republicans have passed anti-voting laws in 18 states. And our best shot at fighting back is the Freedom to Vote Act, which establishes federal voting standards to protect the franchise.
That's right. The Freedom to Vote Act does just that. It is the successor legislation to the For the People Act, which died in the Senate earlier this year. Importantly, this bill will empower millions of more Americans to cast their ballots with democracy-saving measures that simplify the voting process, like making Election Day a federal holiday, providing 15 days of in-person early voting, allowing same-day and automatic voter registration, and capping voting day limit wait times to 30 minutes.
That's right, Kara. And the bottom line is, as Senator Jeff Merkley told us last week, that the Freedom to Vote Act does the same three big things that the For the People Act was supposed to do. It stops billionaires from buying elections, and I think we all agree that that's a good thing. It stops gerrymandering in its tracks, which we also think is a good thing. And most importantly, it defends the ballot box. So you can read the rest of Jeff Merkley's take on the Freedom to Vote Act at the Revolution Report, and that link is getting dropped in the chat right now.
The good news is that all 50 Senate Democrats have signed on in support of this new voting rights legislation, the Freedom to Vote Act. But if we still need to overcome the 60-vote filibuster that the Republicans will use to block our bill, President Biden has pledged to fight the filibuster to get the bill to his desk. Now we must force people like Senator Joe Manchin to get on board with filibuster reform so Republicans don't destroy our democracy. Fixing the filibuster could also mean creating a path for other key legislation like the PRO Act and the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act.
That's right. Winning is possible on these issues, but only if we organize. So we must rise up and speak up with one voice and demand action on voting rights and filibuster reform from our representatives in Congress. That's why our revolution is partnering with the Declaration for American Democracy to make calls to voters in target states to encourage them to pressure their senators to support the Freedom to Vote Act. The link to sign up for phone banking is in the chat. That link is rrev.us/DFA-DPB, which stands for Declaration for American Democracy Phone Bank, PB.
That's right. I can't think of a better way to reason to phone bank than defending our right to vote. And while we fight for our voting rights to make sure more people are able to vote, we must deliver big on policy so more people want to vote. Whether folks come out to vote for Democrats in the midterms and beyond depends on how congressional Democrats choose to use their vote right now. Democrats must pass Bernie's budget bill to begin to restore the faith of the American people that democracy can work for their lives and that voting is actually worthwhile. We need to prove that our party is the party that gives ordinary Americans healthcare, good jobs, childcare, free community college, and a safe planet on which to live. And if the party proves it can deliver, the American people will vote for Democrats over Trump's GOP.
That's right, Kara, and that's exactly why our revolution is committed to winning the battle over the $3.5 trillion budget. And as Bernie said, the budget bill is the most consequential legislation for the working class since the New Deal. A quick recap of what's in it and what's at stake here. It's expanding Medicare to cover millions more people, bold action to avert the coming climate catastrophe, millions of good paying union jobs, taxing the wealthy and corporations, drastically lowering prescription drug prices, free community college, pre-K and childcare, as well as home care for the elderly and the disabled, more union protections for workers, paid family leave. I mean, the list goes on and on.
And as we know, shameless corporatists like Kurt Schrader, Kirsten Sinema, Joe Manchin, Stephanie Murphy, Josh Gottheimer, and others are using their power to try to tank the bill and our progressive priorities. This is outright sabotage of the party agenda, the Biden presidency, and Democrats' chances in future elections, not to mention people's lives, the pandemic recovery, and the fate of the planet. All of this in an effort to satisfy the donor class, who refuses to relinquish a single dollar or ounce of power to the working class.
This is truly an historic battle between ordinary Americans and the corporate establishment over who our government is going to serve. As Joseph Givargis told The Atlantic in a new column by Russell Berman, Through relentless organizing and outside pressure, and by electing our allies into the halls of power, we have shaped the party platform and President Biden's agenda, far beyond what was possible in the Obama era. And we aren't getting everything we want, we know that, but this is one skirmish in a larger war. But we have a chance at something genuinely transformational here. The budget would mean a real shift in power to the working class that would set us up for bigger wins down the line, policy-wise and electorally moving forward. And that's why we here at Our Revolution are taking this fight in person to corporate Dems through direct action at their offices, in the streets, and even crashing their fancy fundraisers with billionaire benefactors. We'll get a report later on how Our Revolution members have gone after Representative Gottheimer and some of the folks known as the Nefarious Nine, some of the folks in the Problem Solvers Caucus, whose numbers actually have dropped now. There's only 7 of them, so they're the Sinister 7 now, not just the Nefarious 9. After our actions, and Vicente Gonzalez and Filemon Vela in Texas in particular have changed course a little bit, decided to support a $3.5 trillion budget, which is great, but we need to do more.
Not only is our outside organizing producing results, but Our Revolution's work to elect allies in Congress is paying off big. The Congressional Progressive Caucus had the numbers to flex their muscle and ensure that the vote would fail on the corporatist beloved bipartisan infrastructure bill without being tied to Bernie's $3.5 trillion budget bill. As a result, the vote scheduled for today on the bipartisan bill was postponed by Speaker Pelosi, who knew she didn't have the votes without the unified bloc of House progressives. With the strong support of Our Revolution, progressives held the line and kept our leverage so both bills pass or neither do.
That's right, Kara. And this was a victory on the ongoing battle for the budget, but we still need your help to get this life-changing legislation over the finish line. You can use the link in the chat that's getting dropped right now to call your member of Congress and tell them to hold the line and fight for our priorities. That link is rrev.us/budget fight. And that link is getting dropped in the chat now.
Before we get going, it's important to remember that Our Revolution is 100% funded by you, our members. Over the past 5 years, we've become America's leading grassroots funded political action organization. Together with all of you, we are working to deliver on progressive policy that will change people's lives. If you're already a member, thank you. You're the reason any of this is even possible. If you're not a member yet, now is seriously the time to get involved. We're able to hold politicians accountable, campaign on our issues, elect progressives, and transform the party because of your support. Sign up to become a member right now by going to this link, rrev.us/2021 member. Or if you're on the phone, press *3 and an operator will take down your info. If you sign up to be a member, tell us about it in the chat. We'd love to hear from our members. Back to you, Paco.
Thanks, Kara. And so now it's time to bring on our first guest for the evening, Representative Jesus Chuy García. We're so grateful to welcome you here tonight, straight from Capitol Hill to give us the latest on where things stand with this budget process. Chuy, thanks for being here tonight, and thanks so much for being one of the Congressional Progressive Caucus members who came out early to publicly commit to voting for the bipartisan bill, if and only if the boldest possible budget bill stays tied to it. So can you tell us about how things played out today in the budget process? Where are we at?
Well, thank you. Glad to join you, Paco and Kara, and of course, all of our friends at Our Revolution. First, let me start by thanking you, because without your dogged advocacy and relentless pressure campaigns, we wouldn't have the White House, the Senate, or the House. And as a result of your advocacy, we didn't take a vote on the bill tonight. And without all three, without both houses and the White House, we wouldn't have the fortune of discussing the strategy around the once-in-a-lifetime agenda like what we're doing tonight. Right now, Congress is considering 2 massive pieces of legislation, the bipartisan infrastructure bill and the 3.5 reconciliation package, which carries with it game-changing provisions like the ones that we haven't seen since the New Deal. And that's why the Congressional Progressive Caucus is championing that bill, replacing things like all lead pipes in America, expanding affordable housing, putting a cap on the cost of child care, limiting prescription drug prices, among many other good things. But let me say it out straight. We're facing very significant hurdles ahead if we want to drive home a truly transformational package. You've made yourself felt already. But first, we need to fend off the efforts of conservatives in our party like Joe Manchin in the Senate and Josh Gottheimer in the House. The stakes for working families, immigrants, and the future of our planet are just too high. Next, we need to figure out new steps with regard to cementing a pathway to citizenship and giving millions of immigrants the right to call American home. When these talks first began, we were talking about creating a path to residency and citizenship for almost 8 million undocumented people. And that includes the DACA recipients, those with temporary protective status, essential workers, and farm workers. I was one of the first to flatly say that if immigration reform isn't in reconciliation, I would not vote for that. Just because the unelected parliamentarian of the Senate shot down one approach doesn't mean we ought to throw our hands in the air and give up. No way. Instead, we need to hold Senate Democrats accountable to exploring all options. Senate Democrats haven't had the backbone to end the racist filibuster, and they don't seem to have the courage to overrule the parliamentarian either. In the coming days, we will see what compromises are offered, but I stand firm. Unless we advance real immigration reform that will help the millions of undocumented people in our country secure dignity and the peace of mind that they can call America home, I will maintain my position. As for the bipartisan Senate infrastructure bill, I maintain serious misgivings. And as of now, I'm holding the line and reserving a no vote. I'm not giving up my leverage, and neither are dozens of my colleagues in the Progressive Caucus, unless the Speaker brings up reconciliation as written, not a watered down, slimmed down version that Manchin gets his hands on. I won't vote for the infrastructure bill. Don't get me wrong. America needs real investments in infrastructure. Heck, I sit on the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, where we actually voted on transformative changes that would have forced new construction to reckon with future emissions, changes that would have finally prioritized repair over new construction and transit over new roads and highways. But that's not what the Senate bill is. Instead, it's trillions of dollars being thrown in the same status quo policies that have brought our planet to the brink of total collapse. The transportation sector remains the leading emitter of greenhouse gas emissions, but we're being asked to pass a bill that would help codify bad policies for almost a decade to come. The same policies that brought us into this mess where extreme weather events are getting more common and more extreme. That's why we, including each of you, need to raise hell this week to make sure that we pass both bills, with reconciliation going first. If we pass the Senate bill, there's nothing stopping conservative Democrats from walking away and leaving reconciliation package to rot. We need everyone to pull together, and we need everyone to get activated. Call your senators, call your reps, especially if they're Democrats who aren't on board. This is a chance for our generation to tackle childhood poverty, give working people free access to community college, bring down the cost of prescription drugs, and last but not least, give millions who suffer in the shadows a pathway to citizenship and the dignity to work and stay in the country they call home. Let's roll up our sleeves and let's get our fellow Democrats in line.
Thank you so much, Chuy, for your words. That was awesome. Do you have time for a couple questions? Real quick ones. So I think the first one is, you've been a champion for immigration reform for quite a while, probably forever, as far as I know, right? But this parliamentarian thing is a problem. What do you think are the paths forward here? Is that something the Senate's going to have to figure out?
Well, the Senate is preparing to meet again with the parliamentarian to appeal her ruling by offering another approach to the legalization of people in those four categories that I mentioned, from DACA to people with TPS, farm workers, and essential workers. That would be a very positive outcome. If they fail to do that, there are still other options that need to be explored. But again, it's very unfortunate that we are not getting rid of the filibuster. That would be the best thing. It would prevent minority rule and a veto by a minority in the Senate to continue to have so much power in our country and in our society. So we are exploring other options and prepared to advance them in the next couple of days before the possible Thursday showdown, when votes on both, hopefully, a reconciliation bill and the skinny infrastructure bill from the Senate may be considered.
That's great. And my second question is a little bit off of the budget problem, but still something that we, care about here at our revolution. We were super glad to see you were one of the 9 members of the House Democrats who voted against the $1 billion in funding for Israel's Iron Dome in the National Defense Authorization Act. Unfortunately, it went through anyway, right? But are you seeing a little bit of a shift within the Democratic Party where folks maybe are more willing to take on the military-industrial complex?
Yes, I am. The vote last week where a request from Israel for $1 billion in additional funding to what was already in the defense budget came out of the blue without going through an ordinary process for consideration, for questions, for debate. And that's one of the reasons that I voted for it. It should have been part of the defense budget request and gone through such a process. But I think that more and more members of Congress are becoming more aware and keener on the issues. And I think that the continuing settlements being built on Palestinian land across the West Bank or Palestine are very troubling to people. And of course, the Israeli government, even the new government's inability or unwillingness to sit down and to discuss changing their policies in the treatment of Palestinians and respecting Palestinian rights is becoming more troublesome for more and more members of the Democratic caucus. I hope that as these practices and policies of the Israeli government are exposed, that there will be more common sense among more members of the Democratic caucus in this type of actions that are considered by Congress.
All right. Well, Chuy, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Thank you so much
Always a
for
pleasure.
holding the line how you have been and for leading the Progressive Caucus. It's great to see progressives flexing their muscle a little bit like they haven't in a while in Congress. And for your vote on the NDAA. We really appreciate it. Stand strong. We got your back, and we'll be seeing you shortly.
Great. Thank you. And keep up the great work to all of our Revolution affiliates.
All right. Thanks. So you heard it from Representative Garcia, from Chuy, as we fight the battle over the budget and organize direct actions against corporatists hell-bent on stopping progressive change. We need your help. Our revolution relies on 100% grassroots funding to carry out our mission and our critical work. So please sign up to become a recurring donor to keep our momentum going. We cannot do this without you. You can go to rrev.us/2021member and you can sign up there. Or if you're on the phones, you can press *3 and an operator will help you sign up. Kara, take it away.
Yeah, Paco, that was great. Representative Garcia has me super motivated to chip in, pitch in, do everything I can to keep our progressive momentum growing and fight for big wins. That's exactly what our members are doing all across the country. So let's jump into our field report to hear what's happening on the ground. First, let's go to Hal Ginsberg with Our Revolution Maryland. I understand you guys took it to the House Majority Leader, Rep. Steny Hoyer, at his annual bull roast fundraiser. Did you call him on his bull, Hal?
There was a lot of bull there, Kara, I got to tell you. And, just seeing all those folks in their really nice gowns and suits and fancy clothes, all just kind of gravitating towards the majority leader. Honestly, it did not sit well in my stomach. But yes, we did go right to confront him. And you can see that picture. I actually took that. That's our great Prince George's County activist, Donna Brennan. And the way we figured we'd approach the majority leader is she would kind of go close to him. He does have a reputation, which is apparently accurate, that he likes the ladies. And he kind of moved close towards Donna. I stood to the side, and you can see they're just almost nose to nose. And at first he had a more smiling affect, but the questions started coming in about the budget reconciliation package and bipartisan infrastructure bill, and which he was going to support, and was there going to be a vote. And we don't like Biff, and we don't want that without reconciliation, and that won't happen. So he told us that he and Nancy feel the same exact way, and they're not going to, they don't want reconciliation without Biff, or they don't want Biff without reconciliation, but it's all on the Senate. It's all in the Senate. They have they'll do whatever they can do. But we made our case. I think we were strong with him, and we were outside as well, talking to the donors who are going in there. And you can see us standing outside. So we're very pleased. And quick shout out to Food and Water Action, which has been a really great supporter and ally of ours in a lot of action. So we're really pleased to work with the activists there. So that was, we're hoping we're making a difference. And we saw it today. There was no vote. And they wanted a vote. As Hoyer said, we want a vote. We're hoping to have a vote. Couldn't do it. So folks should pat themselves on the back for all the calls, the emails, the texts.
Well, I'm glad Our Revolution Maryland had an opportunity to roast Leader Hoyer. Today, I heard there's some more action happening on the Hill with Our Revolution Maryland, Virginia, and DC joining on Capitol Hill with the People's Watch Coalition and representatives like Rashida Tlaib, Mondar Jones, Ayanna Presley, Ro Khanna. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Super exciting, Kara, on the Hill all day. And I probably have a little bit of color from all the sun out there. It was really exciting to be with a lot of great activists from who are part of that People's Watch Coalition, as you mentioned. And we were in white. You can see I'm wearing white. I'm not wearing my traditional Our Revolution blue for this call because it was a white in solidarity dress code. And we wanted to present as the folks who are demanding structural change to make life just a little bit better for poor, struggling, working people, people of color, immigrants, folks who are simply not getting what they deserve, what all of us deserve in this economy. So it was a really powerful day. No question about it. You mentioned 4 of the 5 Congress members that spoke. I don't think you mentioned New York's Jamal Bowman, and he was very powerful as well, Kara. So it was just a really great day, and we were there for about 6, 7, 8 hours. We had some Virginia activists, as you mentioned, from all over the DMV. So I'm really excited about this. We'll be going back again, and we're going to be there until that reconciliation package passes with all the needed benefits.
That's awesome, Hal. Thank you for all of the action-packed Hill. Hold the line. And next up, we'll hear from Anna Martavisky on Our Revolution, New Jersey's many, many recent actions targeting 2 of the worst actors working to undermine the budget bill, Reps Josh Gottheimer and Kathleen Rice. Anna Marta, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kara. Hi, everyone. Kara, first and foremost, I want to give a shout out to you because as we are in the field, on the ground, organizing, putting together these rallies, these protests, and hosting them, you are at the other end at HQ, making sure that when we go live on all of our platforms, we look great, we sound great, and our message is delivered loud and clear. So thank you so much for that. I do want to start with New York, not with New Jersey. We had a surprise kind of curveball type of thing happen to us in New York, where a week ago, Kathleen Rice, representing New York's 4th congressional district, Long Island, Nassau, came out in the House Energy and Commerce Committee when that committee was doing the markups, and she voted against allowing Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices for everyone. As for a context, here in the US, we pay 3 times higher prices for our prescription drugs than anywhere in the world. And that's because the industry simply can charge as much as they want, as much as the market can bear, because the government cannot do anything about it. We cannot regulate this market. So there was a swift ad hoc coalition, including our NIPAN local chapter, Long Island activists, who rapidly mobilized to make sure that Kathleen Rice hears from us. And there was a protest last week on Wednesday, a speak out where community members, patients came out in front of her district office and spoke to her staffers and to the nation about what they're dealing with their medical issues and our sky high drug prices. And that ad hoc coalition is just gaining momentum and strength because they're getting new members into that coalition. They know that we need to do more to make sure that Kathleen Rice hears our voices and votes with us when the bill gets to the House floor. Then going to New Jersey, I do want to give a huge shout out here to all of our chapters and all of our members who mobilized to pummel Judge Gottheimer for weeks now. We have done so many actions on the leader of the so-called Nefarious Nine, the leader of the Problem Solver Caucus, who has set out on tanking the Democrats' $3.5 trillion budget bill because he listens to his big donors. Big pharma, big oil, corporate lobbyists are more important to him than his constituents. So our Revolution New Jersey mobilized, and 3 Mondays in a row, we went out with a huge turnout to his district office. But we didn't only do that. We also held bird-dogging actions. We infiltrated one of his high-profile fancy fundraisers. And I have my comrade here from our Revolution, Trenton Mercer, to tell us a little bit about how that action went. So Joe, take it away. Just briefly, what did you see at that fundraiser?
Yeah, thank you, Ana Marta. Again, Joe Marchica, co-chair of our Revolution, Trenton Mercer. Like you said, 2 weeks ago, went to the fundraiser at a multi-million-dollar mansion that was hosted for Josh Gottheimer. Suited up, mixed and mingled, blended in as best we could. Heard some really interesting comments, including on the protesters who were outside the event about how, can you believe those are Democrats? Can you, and we eat our own, all types of ridiculous stuff like that. It was surreal to hear the different perceptions from the inside of one of these fancy fundraisers. It's bizarre. If you ever have the opportunity, I recommend just experiencing it because it's hard to really wrap your head around it until you're there. In any case, we heard some comments from Gottheimer himself, who shared that he didn't think the budget would stay at 3.5. He thought the number needed to come down, and he didn't think it would pass because he was hiding behind Manchin and Sinema in the Senate. And that they would not vote for it. So he was not standing up for his own opinion, although he kind of was, but he was hiding behind them. So then after the mix and mingle section, we transitioned to the back of the House. He gave this big, long speech about how important restoring the SALT cap is, which is just a massive tax cut for the wealthy. And he lauded the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which is basically written by Exxon and corporate lobbyists, with barely a mention of the budget, except to say how important it was to, on the bipartisan infrastructure deal, work across the aisle with Republicans. And then it's important to get things done. It was just, we need to cut the bill's total, and we need to work across the aisle. So he then transitioned to taking questions, and I stepped in, and I pretty much asked him, if the number needs to come down, what are we going to cut? How are we going to do that? And I wanted to go through the list. I wanted to go through Medicare expansion. I wanted to go through a civilian climate corps, clean electricity standard, green infrastructure investments, fixing labor law, passing portions of the PRO Act, free childcare, paid family and medical leave, universal pre-K. You've heard the list, I don't know how many times. Tons of very much needed improvements. And before I could get through more than one item on this list, you want to know what he did? He ran away because he did not have a good answer. He ran away and hid behind the host of the fundraiser. He ran away and hid behind the mayor of the town we were in, Englewood. He wants to cut these things because he's trying to help his donors avoid things like ending fossil fuel subsidies and taxing the rich so that they pay their fair share to pay for all those needed improvements. He's putting his donors ahead of the American people, but he can't say that because he'd get rightfully lambasted. So he ran away instead. Things evolved from there, and after a good amount of arguments, the cops were called and we were asked to leave the fundraiser, which at that point I was very happy to do. You can find a video of all this on our Revolution social media, but this just puts into perspective how disingenuous these corporate shills are and how much of an impact we really have when we organize and we show up and we shine the light on exactly how they're selling out regular working class Americans on behalf of their wealthy corporate donors. So we're going to keep it going. At this point, we're in a really good spot. As far as I know, the numbers that have been whipped up to try to make sure that the bipartisan bill cannot pass until after the budget that we need passes. They're looking pretty good. We're going to keep this thing going out, and our allies in Congress are going to be willing to vote this thing down, the bipartisan bill, if necessary, in order to get this budget through. So last thing, I just want to thank everybody else who turned out for our events, everybody else who turned out for all of the events across the country through this Revolution recess to really try to get this done. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. And a quick shout out to our Oregon team that went out twice to protest Kurt Schrader, another pharma Democrat, and also to our Florida team went out and protested Murphy because she's also part of the Nefarious Nine. So great teamwork all around, all across the country. And thank you again. Back to you, Kara.
Thanks, Santa Marta. And stay tuned for more actions on how we're holding the line for the 3.5 trillion bill. We're going to hear more from Texas and Oregon and more. But first, we're going to jump to Justin Bibb, since he's on the call, and just tell you a little bit about our elected progressive champions. So not only are our Revolution members fighting to win progressive policies, we are also on the front lines in electing the next generation of progressive champions at the local level and federal level. Now that the last primary elections have wrapped, our Revolution is turning our attention to the November general elections, where we face important battles in cities across the country. In just over 5 weeks, we have the opportunity to build progressive power in cities from Buffalo to Minneapolis. Here are some races to watch. Paco, over to you.
Thanks, Kara. In Buffalo, India Walton soundly won the Democratic primary for mayor in June, but still faces a write-in campaign from four-term incumbent establishment mayor and Andrew Cuomo buddy, Byron Brown. If it wasn't for Brown's Trumpian refusal to accept the results of a free and fair election, Walton would be sailing into the mayor's seat in this deep blue city. She's still favored to win, but here at our Revolution, we take nothing for granted. The fight always continues right up through Election Day, and that's why our Revolution and the New York Progressive Action Network, NIPAN, co-chair George Albro, joined with some of our endorsed candidates in New York City, Brad Lander, the New York City Comptroller, and public advocate Jumani Williams to co-host a fundraiser for India this past weekend. Kara, back to you.
Yep, and our Revolution endorsed Jeremiah Ellison for re-election to Minneapolis City Council. George Floyd's murder last year put Jeremiah at the center of the movement to rethink policing in our cities. And he has been leading the fight in Minneapolis to create the Department of Public Safety that would oversee policing. As a result, conservatives are mounting an aggressive campaign to defeat him. And in Ohio, our movement is poised to elect a progressive champion to lead the city of Cleveland. Tonight, we're joined by Justin Bibb, who has our Revolution's national endorsement as he heads into the general election to become the next mayor of Cleveland. Justin, welcome. Please tell us how you're feeling coming off that big upset win in the primary a couple of weeks ago, where you blew the other candidates out of the water.
I'm feeling great, Kara. I think we have a lot of great momentum heading into the general election on November 2nd. And I truly believe we're building a bold, new, dynamic, progressive vision in the city of Cleveland that's going to shock the world come November 2nd. And I know I couldn't have done it without the great support from our revolution. We've been knocking on doors, calling voters, texting voters. We had over 200 plus meet and greets all across the city. I've taken over 2,000 questions from residents because I believe if you want to lead a city like Cleveland, you got to listen. You got to listen with your heart and your head to do the real work of enacting real racial and economic justice in cities like Cleveland. And that's what I'm committed to do.
That's awesome. It's got to feel a little bit of intense and exhilarating as a young guy, first-time candidate, carrying all this momentum and heading to the top spot in Cleveland city government. But you're obviously a very effective candidate, very well organized. Tell us about your strategy coming into this race and the important role that grassroots organizing has played in the success of your progressive campaign.
Well, Kara, we are just going to double down on what we did in the primary, meeting voters where they are, whether it's a barbershop or a salon. I've also been in a couple goat farms on the west side of the city too. And I think that's the kind of mayor people want in the city of Cleveland. We've also have a fantastic team. And also we mobilized nearly 100 students, an organization called Students for Bibb that have helped us knock on doors all across this city. And so it's all about inspiring, I believe, the next generation of leaders in our campaign and truly doing the hard work of building a grassroots movement for change that we need now more than ever, given the enormity of the problems that we see in Cleveland right now.
And looking forward, can you tell us some of your key initiatives that you're most excited about getting to work on when you get into the mayor's seat?
Well, I know you gave a shout out to the council candidate in Minneapolis that's really focused on policing and police accountability. I'm backing a major ballot initiative in Cleveland called the Safer Cleveland Ballot Initiative, issue 24. And it's going to put one of the toughest independent civilian re-oversight boards on the ballot November 2nd. And I believe before we can have true safety in cities like Cleveland, we got to have trust between residents and our police. And as mayor, I am willing to share power with the people to get that trust. That's critical. Secondly, we can't be a great city without a modern and responsive city hall, because the inefficiencies that we see in city government day in and day out only exacerbate the inequities we see in child poverty and our lead paint crisis and the issues we see around climate justice in Cleveland. And then thirdly, public education. We got to make sure we are training the next generation of our students to have the good jobs of the future and bring back the middle class. And that's going to be my fight if elected come November 2nd.
Wow, who's excited about Justin Bibbs? Is there anything our members can do to make sure you seal the deal in this general election coming up? Early vote starts next week, right?
Well, we have been running a grassroots funded people powered campaign. So anything you can do to support and donate $5, $10, $50 will go a long way to buy more pizza and coffee and donuts for our volunteers. If you want to sign up for a virtual phone bank, we would love that. We're going to have a couple of text banks as well. And if you feel like making the trek to Cleveland to join us on a canvas, let us know. We'd love to welcome you into the land. We got a good football team finally in Cleveland with the Browns, so we can watch some football and campaign and make sure we can win this election at the same time.
All right. Well, thank you, Justin. And I don't know if you got a chance to look at the chat, but it got lit up when you started talking. So our folks are excited. So happy to have you. So happy to have endorsed you tonight, and looking forward to seeing what we can do in Cleveland together.
Thank you guys for having me. Looking forward to getting to work.
All right, thanks. So as we fight to elect progressives up and down the ballot and organize direct actions against the corporatists hell-bent on stopping our progressive change, we need your help. Our revolution relies on 100% grassroots funding to carry out this critical work. So please sign up to become a recurring donor and keep our momentum going. We cannot do this without you. This is the link is getting dropped in the chat right now. It's rrev.us/2021 member. So let me now bring up Clayton Tucker. We have to mix up our order a little bit, but it's no big deal. Clayton is going to give us a report on the actions by Our Revolution Texas, who have really been drilling down on big oil petro dams. Get it? Get it? The likes of Representatives Henry Cuellar and Filemon Vela and Vicente Gonzalez and several others who sent a letter to Speaker Pelosi last week threatening the budget unless, the budget protects and gives out more fossil fuel subsidies. Boo, hiss, boo. So Clayton, tell us, what went down in Texas?
Sure thing. Thank you, Paco. So we had a lot of real powerful events down here in the Lone Star State. We rallied outside the offices of Representative Vela, Gonzalez, Cuellar, as well as protesting some Dallas area Democrats, such as Representatives EBJ, VC, and Allred. And y'all know what happened? Come to find out, several of the petro Dems, their backbones are more liquefied than fossilized because a couple of them caved in to our demands. So as Paco put it, we went from the nefarious 9 to the sinister 7. Representatives Vela and Gonzalez decided that maybe people do come first instead of big oil. And legitimately, we thank them for this. This bill and this budget will so much help the folks of South Texas. It will help so many people in their district. So we legitimately thank them for this. And we also really have to thank all of our South Texas movers and shakers who really made all this possible. Because, change doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens when we force it to happen. So Paco, do you want to share with all of our friends listening in right now how they too can become movers and shakers?
Absolutely. It's going to take a lot of us to make sure we get the budget bill across the finish line, and we must be loud so that they can't ignore us, right? So you can use the link in the chat and call your member of Congress and tell them to hold the line and fight for our priorities. That includes getting rid of fossil fuel subsidies. So you can do that at rrev.us/budget fight. Let me kick it over to Kara, who can tell us a little bit more about what we got going on this week.
Taking action to get this budget bill over the finish line is the first thing now we need to do this week. We have to be loud and we cannot be ignored. Use the link in the chat and call your member of Congress to tell them to hold the line and fight for our priorities. rrev.us/budget fight. The link is in the chat.
Thanks, Kara. And as we've said before, right, winning is possible, but only if we get organized. We got to get rid of the filibuster. We got to pass our Freedom to Vote Act. And so we must, rise up and speak with one big voice on voting rights and filibuster reform. That's why we've partnered here at Our Revolution with the Declaration for American Democracy. So we're making calls to voters in targeted states to encourage them to pressure their senators to support the Freedom to Vote Act. The link to sign up is getting dropped in the chat right now. Sign up for a shift. Let's do some phone banking. That link is rrev.us/DFADPB.
That's right. Take action. Get calling. I'll be there too. Join us on Thursday too, on September 30th, as we come together to rally on Capitol Hill and urge Congress to investigate Facebook. We deserve to know the truth of why Facebook covered up its own internal research and the full extent of the harm of its platforms. If Facebook won't listen to their own internal researchers, let's make it impossible for them to ignore us.
That's right. And you've heard about all the work we've been doing and putting in on the budget and on voting rights, but we can't do it all without you. So together with all of you, we're working to deliver progressive policies that will change people's lives. So if you're already a member, thank you so much. You're the reason any of this work that you just heard about is possible. If you're not a member yet, now is seriously the time to get involved. Like seriously, there's so much going on. We need all the help we can get. So sign up to become a member, sign up for a phone banking shift, sign up to show up to one of these events. That way we're able to hold politicians accountable, campaign on our issues, elect more progressives, and transform the party. So you can sign up by going to rrev.us/2021 member. If you're joining by phone, you can press *3 and an operator will help you out and take down your info and make sure you get connected. So Kara, let me turn it over to you so you can take us on out of here.
Yeah, Paco, thank you. I think after an action-packed call like this, we know this statement is truer than ever, and that is when we organize, we win. So please join me in the chant. When we organize,
we win.
We win.
When we organize,
we win.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Woo.